if you look at your life when you're critical about story as you're training as a writer, now you have been writing. You've just been doing, think about it from the dark side of the negative side. When you see something in a comic that didn't quite stick with you, analyze why that was wrong and don't do it in your work. And then also reflect back on your life. For me, it was the men in my life that had these great tales, the young guy that's too bombastic, the old man that knows the way it is, but nobody wants to hear it. And those things that your dad or your grandpa, your uncle, some mentor told you, those are little dings. There's truths. And I think we only remember the truth or the antithesis of it. And I think everything else is gray. And if those moral tales stick out to you, they will, all you got to do is put the mask of a barbarian with no face or a gangster with some guns and put those same tales in there. Use your life as your writing resource. And that's what I did. And maybe that means I only got one story in me, but I'm going to tell that to the very end, you know, and that's my goal.
This is the INKPULP Podcast.
Yo.
Wow.
That's a new
It's
one.
my new intro.
Yeah,
voice.
I think
You
let's,
like it?
let's keep it going.
Yeah, let's skip that. Yeah, awesome.
I think it's hilarious that people don't realize that outro is your actual voice. They think like Jamie's adding it.
I think it's
The outro that Eric tries every time to cut.
Yeah, that one. Wait, what's it sound like? I don't remember. What's it sound like, Mateo? You know that scene when Anakin kind of becomes Darth Vader?
Uh-huh.
Look at Eric's screen. Does that make you think of that scene?
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. For a moment, I thought, do they make this sound when he turns into Darth Vader? Like, I'm turning
That would be awesome.
Darth Vader. Hello. I'm gonna fucking kill you.
You guys got this.
Eric has had enough already. We are 1 minute in and Eric is done.
our new record. We make Eric leave after less than 2 minutes.
That's a new goal. That's a new goal. Welcome, everyone, to the INKPULP Podcast. I'm Shawn Crystal, and I'm joined by my buddies, Eric Canetti and Matteo Scalera. This is an NPR edition of the INKPULP Podcast. My little ASMR.
I hate this already so much.
We are supposed to have a guest today, but they are no-show so far.
They're either running late or they're not going to show up. So either way, we're just going to end up talking. They hop in. We're going to stay on for an hour because I have a hard out, 60 minutes from now.
Sure. That's fine. I'm going to kick it off unless you guys have a question.
For whom?
Who's going to question like? Okay.
I've got a question, so I was giving you guys the floor first.
All right.
Yeah, but for a moment, I thought you were talking to the audience. I was like, did this idiot know that we're just recording the episodes? Did he forget?
Do you really think I'm that stupid? I mean, seriously, like you contemplated that thought. Like Shawn is that dumb.
I would love to think you're not, but
hold on.
sometimes I have
to
some
be fair,
doubts.
listen.
I gotta be honest.
Listen, I think he had to talk himself out. Like the way you phrase that question is that, do you think I'm really that dumb? He had to talk himself out of that question, like that thought. You know what I mean? So I think the question is, he does think that, right? And then he had to go, no, Shawn can't possibly be that dumb. So he effectively gave you a benefit of a doubt.
Yeah.
So Shawn, you had a question for the Phantom audience. Go ahead. Well,
Nick just emailed. He's going to be in soon. So until he gets here, I've been looking at both of your guys' work quite a bit, and your so like I said, I'm spending a lot of time this year working on my value systems in my paintings. So my question is, what helped you guys gain a better understanding of how to use value in a composition?
You go first, Manny.
I just think about you're talking specifically for a painting.
Or what? I mean, you always work in values. So for a panel or for a cover, like you do.
I don't know. Generally speaking,
Mateo says, I'm just really fucking good. You know, that's what he's saying. I'm just good.
pretty much.
it's just a natural,
Like,
you know.
I don't know. I
It's
don't
like
need to learn.
fucking it's fucking Tuesday. I'm just good on Tuesday and Monday, and Thursday and Friday and Saturday.
Generally speaking, I think about what I want the focus to be in the image that I'm doing, that I'm working on, and then I work around it with values. But it's more complicated than that. But I would have to think about it. Like, I would have really to think about it. This is one of those things where
is there an Odyssey study?
I'll probably have a nice answer, but after the podcast. So probably I'll tell you the answer on the next episode.
Next show is us three. We can talk about it then. You have some time to let it marinate.
Yeah.
When is the next show?
We'll do one next week. If you guys want to do one next week, we'll do one next week.
No, are we going to be in, what do you call it, doing one? Or are we going to be in the show?
Do you want
doing
me to
one,
bring equipment to do one into Orlando, DC?
Yeah.
That'd be nice to do.
Well, Mateo, it's a quick turnaround for Mateo. It'd be great.
Do an in-person
fun.
one? Okay. Yeah. All right. I'll pack some shit. I got to figure out what I need. But yeah, I'll figure it out.
That's awesome.
Bring your super fancy camera, man.
Well, I'll bring my Mevos like we did in Italy.
There it is. Did we ramp one up in Italy or no?
We did one in Mateo's studio.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, and I bought the handheld mics and the soundboard, so that's what I'll do.
You're not going to bring the soundboard.
Yeah, I'm going to have to.
Yeah, all right.
Because because the Mevos will only be able to handle 2 mics, so we're going to need 3, so I'll bring the soundboard for that.
All right. Fine, if you want to get fancy about it.
Well, that's the only way we can record
What brought
audio.
that question up?
About values?
Mm-hmm.
Because I've been spending, I've dedicated myself this year to getting a better understanding of it, and every painting I've been doing, I'm showing Mateo, I'm showing Ilya, and I'm getting feedback, and I'm just like, what can help me learn better? And so that's why I was asking you to see if there's any tools out there that you guys recommended.
Yeah, generally speaking, Shawn, going back to my answer, I would say that in general, what I do is, again, I start from one point on my piece, and this goes especially for illustrations, like commissions and stuff like that, so single pieces. And I will start from one specific point and how I want it to be visualized. And then I'll go around that thing with all the other stuff that I have there. So, for example, we were just before starting recording, we were talking about the logo that I just showed you. So I really wanted his face to be, I wanted a dark gradient to go over his face. I don't know if you have the chance to see it now. Maybe we'll ask Jamie to put.
Yeah, I'm pulling
the logo.
Jamie. Yeah,
on the logo on.
I'm pulling it up right now on my phone so I can see it.
Yeah, I really wanted a dark gradient on his face so you could just see his eyes and the teeth, and then I started building from there. So since he has dark hair and stuff like that, the face, the head, was gonna be really dark. So I decided I'm gonna put something white behind him, which is kind of moon / planet you have there. And then I went from there. Right. So, yeah.
Okay. And you typically use 5 values. I mean, that's your game, right?
Yeah. The levels are those. It can get more if I have 2 similar values that are one against each other. I can create an extra one. But yeah, generally speaking, I use 5. Yeah. Then that's the reason why I call my new sketchbook 5 Shades of Grey. Oh no, that was the old one. Shit. Fuck.
This is the perfect title for the new one is Dumb Shark.
And that's why I called the second one Dark Shark, the Dumb Shark.
Eric,
That was such an awful train wreck.
You were asking a question before Mateo
That
started
was
talking.
so bad.
You're right, Eric. But the good thing, you know what it is?
That car crash.
Is that I keep trying. Never be ashamed
that's
of
true.
my mistakes.
No.
Yes. Yeah, it's you were not judging on the outcome, we're judging on the effort, and you definitely give A+ all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Eric, you asked how am I getting feedback from them? So I'll take a picture of like when I think.
No,
like,
I mean, what kind of feedback have you gotten from them?
Well, so like I'll send a picture of the work like where I think the values are okay or I'm not sure, and Mateo will like with like edit the photo with his finger and like put some blacks in an area or put some whites in an area and send it back to me so I can understand what he's seeing, and it helps. Aaliyah does the same thing.
Yeah, I think sometimes right now your problem, since you're experimenting more with colors and stuff like that, the problem is that you right now you're kind of suspended into midtones, and you kind of stopped reasoning in black and white like you used to. So I think it's time for you to go back to thinking in black and white and then using the grade to unify the two things that you're doing, basically.
Sure. Yeah. No, that makes sense. Because
what do you mean when he's suspended? What do you mean when you say he's suspended in midtones, Matty?
Because he's experimenting a lot with colors, and colors, you could sometimes fall into this, basically, you're so focused about colors that you lose track of the values, which is the second another way of creating contrast, you know? So he's basically kind of lost in midtones right now. For example, the samurai, the lone wolf and cub piece that you did, like normally if you had to do it just black and white, for example, the trunks, you would have done them like pretty much black with some textures and stuff. And instead now you're thinking color, so you add a really light tone to it, a really light value, and you lost that thing that should have been really helpful in that piece, for example, because you're kind of in between the two words now. So I think that's why you're asking for feedback, because you're kind of getting confused. I think that's the feeling that I have.
All right, here comes Nick.
Here comes Nick.
Hey, there he is.
Sorry, guys. I had to do like a last minute grab my wife's laptop and then her laptop.
Oh, you're not the first. Todd McFarlane had to do the same thing.
Dude, I was waiting all on my wife. I'm so excited about this one. And then I was like on my iMac, and my iMac's been giving me troubles. So I was like, all right, switch it up. And then she came in here, she had it set up. And then it was like, update Google Chrome to do this interview. I was like, crap. So
listen, you're doing okay. We just decided to hit the go button and just had you hop in whenever you were available. Nick, thank you for making time. Really appreciate it. Congratulations on all your success. Thank you for forwarding us the PDF of your book, man. That thing is a monster. I'm looking at the page count. I'm like, holy cow! How much time did it take for you to do all this stuff, dude?
It took a while. On the pages, I drew every panel on an 11x17 board. And
did you really?
Holy.
Yeah. So it was like there's a little bit of a strategy to that. I knew the original art collecting market would be relatively strong with Felix Comic Art, and so I thought if I was going to do this crowdfunding thing, I was going to go as big as I could and do my best work, even though I think when it reduces down, I lose a lot of line quality. But I knew that it needed to be a bit of a spectacle, you know? So that was important to me. And I really appreciate you guys having me on. I'm a big fan. I know Shawn's been interviewing people for so long. And then when you guys started this new editing and seeing you guys reels everywhere, and I was telling Shawn at OAX, I love the conversation you guys have been having. Also blown away by y'all's work and really appreciative to be on. But yeah, I think you guys are doing it right, starting to really brand it. And I think that's going to be the future, us creating our own little identities in the world, selling our
Speak on that, Nick. You've got a lot to say about this. I remember in OAX we touched this.
By the way, before you start, Nick, I just wanted to tell you I recently read Axe Wielder, John, which is your main thing now, and fucking beautiful, man. The story got hooked me up. Now I want to know what's the next chapter. So offline, I need you to tell me something more because I'm hooked up.
Yeah, I want to back up Mateo on this. Nick, I was really blown away by the book. I mean, I know it looked pretty when you handed it to me, and from what I'd seen online, I like your work. But when I dove into it, it was such a refreshing read. I loved it, and I loved the little cliffhanger at the end of that first collection.
Yeah.
Yes, thanks, guys. It means a lot. I got a lot to say about crowdfunding in general and betting on yourself.
Go, man.
Well,
go.
I mean, for me, when I started John, my career was a bit on hold because we had our first daughter and she was sick in the hospital, and we were living at the Ronald McDonald House and staying up nights in the NICU. And when I drew John, I was in the hospital with her, and I love the visual of the character, this big bulky guy. And in the back of the book, I explain why. It'll be a little spoiler, but it's this big bulky guy and he's covered in babies. And I didn't even put together that I was in the NICU. And I kind of like, what is this? And it seemed so familiar in that lone wolf and cub way. But then I was like, can you do the thing where you take everything to the max? Kind of like how manga does. And I was like, I'm not going to give him one axe. I'm going to give him 100 axes. I'm not giving him one thing to protect. I'm giving him 10 things to protect. And I'm going to go all out with this. And at the time, my career was on hold. Leviathan with John Layman, which has never finished. When I told him I was in the hospital, Image just wrote me and they were like, all right, Leviathan's canceled. And I guess they meant on hold. But for me, I had a chip on my shoulder. I'm like, I've worked here 10 years and you didn't even ask me how I'm doing,
That's fucked up.
Yeah. I had a little, and maybe, Image is its own entity and they do their own thing, which is fine. But we all look for our chips on our shoulders to push ourselves, whether someone says we can't make it, whether we don't draw well enough, whether we can't be artists growing up.
Right.
And when I drew John, I had this lot of angst about the industry and how basically me as I know no one knows who I am, by the way. I'm one of the Nicks that worked with Hickman at Image, Nick Dragata, Nick Patera, and there's probably 4 other guys promoting. John will tell you that too, Hickman. He'll tell you that. And I really didn't like that I was 1/5 of the promotional arm for a writer's career. And I had a lot of angst about, we have this daydream of working at the big two. But as you watch them make mistakes that are short-sighted, I would say, and we can get into that, but that's a lot of them. This dream you have creates angst because now your goal is having to switch. And for me, when I looked at the crowdfunding space, with all the negatives of social media, the positive is we have direct connection to fans.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I was like, man, when I think of some of my favorite creators, I almost think of their characters and then them. It was Mike Mignola, you think Hellboy, Stan Sakai, you think Usagi, Mike Allred, you think Madman. Those guys created or Shaolin Cowboy, Jeff Darrow, they created their avatar in the comic book space. And when John came to me, it was such an important, stressful time. I was like, man, I'm going to find out what this guy's story is. I want to write this story, and I'm going to make him my icon in this space. And there's a few things that went into that. For the first time, I was looking up off the page and to the industry, a lot like you guys are doing in y'all's conversations, where you're like, what is going on here? How do we navigate this? How do we fix this? And I saw the crowdfunding space as this, like some people look down on it, right? Like it's a step down from the big two or something. But for me, it was like, and this is not an insult to anyone else. I buy a lot of crowdfunded books, but I was like, if you can go and say, I worked at Marvel, DC, Image, but now I'm doing my own thing, there's this thing where you're selling yourself, and you don't even have to sell your book. The thing you're actually selling is the story on why you want to do your own thing. I know Mateo says he has a book that he's working on, and I can't wait to see that. But it's like, if you say, I worked with Mark Miller or Millar, and I've done all these Batman books, and you can flash that DC logo, or you can flash that Marvel logo, and you say, now I'm doing it my way. And that has pop, you know, and it's almost like that sell of your journey. And I had this great sell because, and it's this emotional sell, and I battled with this, but I'm manipulative. This came to me when I'm like, you know, and I want to tell this story. And then there's that thing, well, can we write, right? Like, can artists write? And what I was telling Shawn at OAX is I realized that Alan Moore, Grant Morrison, Rick Remender, Robert Kirkman, Brian Michael Bendis, pretty much every big comic writer you love, they have one thing in common. Do you know what that is? They're all failed cartoonists. Everyone's a failed cartoonist. Every one of them tried to do what we did and couldn't do it. So I just told myself, I can read how-to books. I can read magic books and eat mushrooms. I can do all the stuff that all those quirky writers do. And I can figure this out. And because I'm just those guys with a little less quit in me, I guess, right? Which is stupid of me to say. And that's not on you, but that's on me. It's a way for me, you know, it's a way for me to be like, I'm going to do this no matter what. And so I bought On Writing. I bought Save the Cat. My wife's an author, and she reads and writes, and we think about story all the time at night once the kids go to bed. And I set out to figure out what the twists and turns of John's story was, and worked on that for probably 6 months before I started drawing it. I came up with 7 volumes, which is way too much, but I plotted it out for 7 breaks, and I'm just going to do it, you know. And that's kind of the story of John and how he's getting going. So yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I was going to say, anything you got to tell yourself to get it done, like you got to tell yourself, I can write like them, like whatever you got to say, it doesn't matter. If it gets you to get to the point where you're getting it done, it's all in a positive means. One of the things I really enjoyed about your book, and one of the things I'm enjoying a lot about these artists who are kind of taking the writing back and doing their own thing, is the books breathe. And what I mean by that is we're spending like the last 5 years or so of me working freelance for Marvel and DC, the scripts were just getting worse and worse and worse. And the writers had zero understanding of the real estate of a page and what can go in a page, how much a page can hold, and very little thought to where, like, let's not overstuff this page with words and stuff going on. And one of the things I always like about manga is it breathes. And I've been complaining about this for a long time, that, you know, you pick up a Marvel or DC book and you open it up, it doesn't welcome you in at all. It's so overwhelming. There's too much there. Whereas like your book, I open it up, it just invites you in. And I think that's something we all need to be thinking about as we're creating these books. And your book just did it in spades. And it was one of the best things about the book for me.
Yeah.
And what did it do to invite you in, Shawn?
Well, every page is 3 panels. So there's a lot of it's a good use of negative space and very minimal in the dialogue. So the story is told visually, and the dialogue's there to serve its purpose and nothing more. But it's not like you're not looking at a 6-panel page with tons of stuff going on everywhere. It's 3 panels. And while there's a ton of like when Nick needed to like draw like a big giant scene, it would be a double-page spread and he would fill the shit out of it. But it was composed well, and there was attention to negative space, and nothing felt overcrowded. And it was welcoming. Does that make sense?
It does.
Something I focused on.
Sorry, I interrupted you.
Something I focused on with that was when I started the writing journey, it was like, I went to like my favorite stuff. Like I love Urasawa's Pluto. And if you've ever read Pluto, a character delivers a line and then they might look down and then look up, and then deliver the line, and the line has impact, and you guys know that. But I did feel sometimes when you would get a script, there's that disconnect from the dialogue and the art sometimes. I think Kirkman's really good. Guys that read a lot of comics that write, like Kirkman, Mark Millar, they do really, it's like more simpatico. Sometimes Grant, who's one of my favorite writers, it feels like the words almost float above the art. And with you writing and drawing it yourself, if you were going down this journey too, you get to decide the page count. You get to decide what breathes and what doesn't. And I always thought decompressed storytelling was the way, And so even though a page, some of those sequences I could have done in 3 pages that I extended to 7 because I wanted the breathing and the space and have the dialogue matter. And then a really big trick for me, and this is probably the biggest trick for a writing tip, is I noticed that some of the best writers, when their characters speak, they are having 2 different conversations and they're not literal. There's no exposition, meaning like in Axe Wielder, there's a new executioner and a retiring executioner. And we set up early that one's about to get his new executioner nickname and one is retiring. So while they're assembling a torture device or something like that, one's dialogue that naturally comes out is, I just want to get out of here. And the other guy's like, just don't fuck me on my nickname today. And they're not actually having a direct conversation. It's their minds living off the page, not unlike when we draw a perfect panel that lives off the page for the reader. The dialogue, those little minds need to exist in that world too. And that just goes with, meditating on it, walking or getting high or whatever your thing is to sink your mind into that world. And in situational things too with the characters, have it be a new character. Or there's a puzzle character that has to give exposition. He's kind of the major domo to the main bad guy. Make him look weird, put him in a weird setting. Little tricks you read in books where it's not as boring, if you do have to get exposition in there. Or there's a reason why Marty McFly is the common man, put a common man character in there. So when they're walking around this castle, it's not exposition to them. It's information that's coming to the reader honestly. So.
Mm-hmm. And may I ask you something? I wanted to ask you, since I saw that in the credits, you're using an editor, Chris Stevens. Did I remember correctly his name? Okay. So was that a decision that you took immediately when you decided to do the book, or something that you realized that you needed after? How did that come up? I'm asking because of my book, I've decided not to use it to see my level. I want to see the reaction that people will have to my stuff, unfiltered. So if I suck, if they say that the books suck, it's because of me. If it's the story suck, I wanna have that specific feedback. So I was just curious to hear why you did it.
Chris Stevens is amazing. He's like a 2-time Eisner Award-winning editor. He's freelance. But we're working together more formal now. And it was man, I am nothing without a deadline. I won't produce. I'll spin my wheels. I'll wait to the last minute. I'm not self-motivated. And the way I knew Chris was, the way I started this journey was I was going to do this, and anything that popped up in my path to get across this river, I looked at like a stone. Why did God or the universe put this person in here? Whether it be a promoter or a platform to go to. And Chris Stevens had long been this kind of crazy person in my inbox. He had did the Large Little Nemo book. It's really gigantic. He was the editor of that. And I was supposed to do something for that, but I never did. And he would call me and berate me. And I barely knew him, He was like, get your shit together. You got a real good chance to be in an important book. Write me messages on Facebook, post on my Facebook wall. This was 10 years ago. And I knew I had not turned it in. I also didn't get paid, so I didn't care. But I did care, And then when I thought, man, I need someone who's going to ride me and be honest with me, Chris was the first person on the list. He had already won Eisner's by then. And I knew I needed somebody like a brother that would get in there and tell me what's going on. And the other part of that, my wife is a great writer, but you can only bother your friends and your wives so much. Be like, oh, on panel 2, this, and call them manically. Oh, and this. No one's going to get in there in the nitty gritty. And I yearned for that. Like, I never got that at Image because we were doing our own thing with Hickman and me. It was it was Marvel style. So it was kind of fly by the seat of your pants. The little bit of work I had at Marvel and DC, a couple issues here and there, no editor ever took interest in me. And I wanted that. I wanted that so bad. And so I was like, man, I'll just pay Chris to do it, and pretty soon we're calling each other every day. Think about this. Think about this. Let's set this up at this turn. And it is invaluable to have 2 or 3 friends and an editor that's invested with you on page turns, combing the dialogue, making it correct like a clock. And not that you have to take all their notes to heart. But you can look at when you get a note and they give you a suggestion, you can look at that as like a little blip on like, oh, this is something I need to readdress because it's not coming off the way it is in my head. And that was a big thing with world building. You might have everything on there in this world because we get this whole world that's living, but we get these JPEGs, these little kisses on the page to show that world. So sometimes it's just not translating. So having an in-depth conversation with someone about what this world is and get them invested in it, now they might help you set it up. And that might just be the right panel or the right bit of dialogue or the right caption box that says something more about the world that you aren't quite saying. And that intent is what a good editor should do. They should draw that story out because we're so concerned about what's going down into the page. Sometimes we forget what's coming up out of the page. And Chris is amazing. And we're going to do I got plans with Axe Builder. A lot of publishers came to me for it, and it'll be, we got a big few. Well, hopefully we're starting a good thing together with me and Chris.
Nick, can you talk at all about the publishing plans, or is that still not knowledge to put out there?
No, I can hint at it. I won't say who we chose yet. That's going to be announced later. But basically, and this is a big turn. Like, you got to create the thing too. Like, a lot of us are like, I have an assistant who's like really into building his platform up. But I personally think he should be working on his art. He's got to get a lot better before he can do the thing you guys are doing, right? But it's kind of like chicken and the egg, right? Like, which one comes first? And with that, it's like, if he does draw well, but no one can see it, then what's the point? Kind of like what McFarlane was saying with you guys. But if he does, if he just makes the platform, but the product isn't good, then you've lost 2, And with me, it's what Matt Kent is doing or what Sean Gordon Murphy's doing. I want to crowdfund my hardcovers and go directly to the fans. But then I also want to be in bookstores around the world. I want to be what I have in Image translated in 9 languages. So I think the future model is what Sean and Matt Kent and a lot of people are doing now, is where you get this stuff funded on your own, and then you bring it after you show it's relatively successful or even almost free for the publisher. And then you go and you reap all those benefits too in a mass market release, put the soft covers out or the single issues out, however you want to break it out. That has to be the future model for me. I can't see it going any other way. And there's a lot of,
when you do that, you're not giving up any of the property to the publisher.
No, I would never. I mean, Image and Hickman taught me that you never give up your IP. I think the days of somebody coming in and paying you $400 a page to own 51% of your book. Let's just say artist X, who's amazing with 50,000 followers online. Someone comes to him and says 51% or 50-50 controlling interest for $400 a page. Artist X can go online and make $500 a page or $300 and not have to do that ever again. And then go back to that publisher and have them distribute it for a percent of the profits on the graphic novel, not any control of the IP. People like those Stan Lee days and those days, I think those days are numbered. Like, these are our properties. We're making them. We're risking our health. I know I do. I eat too much and stay up too late to make these books. And why am I going to do that for a minuscule amount? And I think, and if you think about the turn when you decide to do it yourself, all the anxiety you have is flipped. everything that you were worried about is gone. If I would have went to even Image or anywhere with a pitch from a new writer and 3 or 4 pages of art, then I'm asking some 24-year-old editor at one of these imprints, is it okay to make my art? Absolutely not. I'm never going to do that again. I'm not interested in that. And then when I'm 45, I'm 41 now, but then when I'm 50, and if I'm still on that train, I'm asking a 25-year-old editor or a 24-year-old editor again, one, do they know who I am? Is it okay to make this book that came to me when my kid was sick, that means the world to me, that's going to be my icon? Like, the idea that we are going to go ask permission to make our art, in my head, is gone. I will never do that. I think we all 4 of us draw too well to ask permission to make our art. But it is a problem. We need money. We got to make the bills, and people get scared to bet on themselves. So what I think is going to happen is, let's say Mateo or Eric, say me and Eric combined our mailing list just to be friends. I want nothing from Eric. He wants nothing from me. But I write my 1,600 backers for Axe Wielder and say, check out Eric's book, right? And then you do the favor back to me. Maybe now we cross over 300 or 400 more readers. What if 10 of us do that? What if 12 of us do that? What if 20 of us do that? And we start pumping each other up. It's hard to put the egos aside, but that's my goal with my imprint with Kuroshi, is get people on board, get the art dealers on board. You guys have, there's Jason at Essential Sequential, there's Felix.
I hate Jason. I hate that guy.
They're selling a page for $1,000 a page or $500 a page or $400 commissions or whatever we're making. When we launch these crowdfunded books, we can put out, and Eric knows this, you can put out the artist edition. And what's $100 or $50 when people are paying $500 or $1,000 or $1,200 average per page or more? It's like an add-on, and you can do your P&L, profit and loss, and you can find it. And like they're doing, Skybound's doing Daniel Warren Johnson's Extremity Artist Edition. I brought that up to Skybound 6 years ago. Why aren't they crowdfunding books? Like, why aren't you? And why is Marvel? I mean, maybe Marvel can't, and there's that embarrassment. So you need an imprint to come along, like a Sean Gordon Murphy's or like a Matt Kent's, so there you don't get that direct connection. Like, we're not really crowdfunding our books, but we are. But man, I just think, and then you get this huge asset. It's almost like you guys could drop a podcast and you would get more pop than doing a fill-in issue. You'll be out there and be relevant just as much. That's so cool, right? And then now all of a sudden your asset of this product you're putting out is now something that is putting you over. My ability to talk, whether I'm likable or not, and run my mouth and be hyped up and manic about this, that's an asset versus, sorry, my wife's computer is getting messages, sorry. But basically, when you have, instead of asking permission, if I can tweet this out while I'm building your product and building out an IP on Spider-Man or Flexman Tallow or whatever we're working on, they'll tell you when you can tweet it out. Well, it's the opposite. I know Mateo was talking in one of the past podcasts where he's like, I'm going to show it 2 months out. Dude, start showing it now. Start showing it when you show that Batman cover, because you were dead on when you said they know this is a thing. They know this is being built, because a big part of crowdfunding model is some of these books, you got to trust the person that they're making it. You got to trust they're going to get it out, right? And when I started Axe Wielder for 2 years, I was saying Axe Wielder John, and people would say, who's that? Who's the publisher of this? What is this? And I let that build and build and build. And I made my social media about promoting something I own, and it launches my writing career. And I don't think you can do it too soon. Maybe when it's 2 or 3 months out, you can get that social media manager and that, the right promoter, and then really pump it, but hint it for a year, and then people know it's being built. So for me, that was my mindset. It kind of turned everything on its head. Instead of being quiet, you can be loud. Instead of asking permission, you can just do it. And then once you get into that headspace and you see this wild west of crowdfunding, you can all of a sudden be like, I'm making, like for me, like I'm going to make a 7-inch action figure of Axe Wielder John.
That's awesome.
I'm going to lose $70,000 on an action figure is what I'm actually saying. But I want to make this thing, you know, like I want to do this. I want to make lithographs. I want to make an artist edition. I know a lot of image artists where they won't recollect their work, and they're fantastic artists, 10 times better than me. But Image doesn't want to go negative on the print run. I just don't see why we're letting $30,000 or $40,000 get in the way of doing bigger things. That money is important. You got to have it to live, but money isn't the end goal. It's getting your work out there, getting your brand out there, saying who you are as a person and putting that in a story, your humor, your ability to draw, your ability to make page turns, and then get out there and make our brands. I don't think, and if it takes, like for me, it took $30,000 negative to make Axe Wielder. We did really good on the crowdfunding. We're at almost 215,000 or something like that. But granted, I didn't make money for 2 years while I was drawing it. And I was negative 30,000 in colors and edits and editors and designers. But for me, for $30,000, the next guy can, let's say if James Herron wants to make his next book, I'll just show James Herron 10 times better than me. James, I want nothing from you. I want the best for you. Here's all my backers. Do it under this imprint if you want. I've got it set up to get in stores after. I mean, what's more tempting? You giving your IP away for $400 a page, or you coming to me and I take nothing, you get my backers and we do it. But a lot of people still want to see that model. They want to see that model developed. You know, you got to build it and they will come. You got to run your mouth. I know McFarlane, right? And I think, man, if we don't take from each other and we start giving on the artist side, I mean, the world's our oyster. I believe that, you know.
Nick, let me ask you. So you said you were 30 grand in the hole. You spent 2 years doing Axe Wielder and didn't have income coming in. So how did you pay your bills and keep food on the table during that time? Did you have money saved that floated you?
No, I have so what I do whenever I sell my original art, I buy better art. So I got like a huge Frank Quietly collection. I got some Mobius art. I got a bunch of stuff. And so whenever I need anything, let's say I was making good money in 2013, I would buy a big Seth Fisher cover or something. And then if I need money today, some of that stuff's worth 10, 20 times the value. So I'm sacrificing some of my original art collection a lot of times. My wife she just got a major deal with the Big Five. So she's doing good now, but that's not my money, you know. For me, it's while I was making on John, she didn't have that deal, and she's just an adjunct professor making like $36K a year. So we weren't making anything. Put a little bit on credit cards, pay them off when we can, get by. We were lucky to get in the house like at 2018, so the housing market hadn't exploded yet. So, you know, we get by. We don't, you know, I blow money on art and really nothing else. And, you know, we got to make the ends meet with the kids, you know. So, but yeah, what I realized is my love for art is paid itself back tenfold. And I hate selling, but it's cool too. You know, I got an All-Star Superman cover. I got All-Star Superman pages. I'm really proud of the collection. But like when my kid got sick, the bills were huge. When we needed to get in this house, I had to put 20% down. That had to go. I actually owned a full issue of Trad Moore's art from the Legacy of Luther Strode. It's probably worth $100K today. And I had to sell that for, you know, less than a tenth of that when my kid got sick, you know, 5 years ago.
Wow.
So there's been, and that's heartbreaking, but you know what? It comes and goes, baby. I hate being a guy that I don't want to be a flipper, but if we need the money, you know, the family comes first.
Oh yeah, no.
So
absolutely.
the way I looked at it, like I'm sacrificing a couple of pages that are just sitting in a safe somewhere or in a portfolio to like launch my IP. That's a layup, you know, that's a layup. I'll sacrifice that all day. And then if I can create the foundation I want to create with Chris Stevens, and we don't take people's IP and we make it easier to crowdfund and everyone can come along. And the cool part of that is it's usually beneficial. If I could get Mateo's, Shawn's, and Eric's and James Herron's buyers to me too, right? Like if we all work together, holy crap, dude, what would we ever need to go and take even 1,000? I know Mark pays well, but I don't know what he pays, but that's just throw that number out there. I wouldn't sacrifice. I'll take the 300 or 400 I'll make off the crowdfunding off the 1,000 so I can retain my IP. You know, that's just me though.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
So you did the book and crowdfunded it when it was completely finished?
Yeah, so I extended the book based on notes. It was like 85% done, but the coloring, there's like 7 colorists on the book. Mike Garland's the man, but I was with me drawing. I only drew with 003 microns and 005s, and I drew them all gigantic. So I was breaking the flatter's minds.
That's a nightmare.
Yeah.
Oh shit!
We broke Mike's.
That's a nightmare, bro.
Yeah, eventually broke Mike's mind, and he had to bow out for a mental break. And then I brought guys in; they just weren't working out. Some of them worked out, some of them didn't. So a lot of money and time was wasted there. While they were catching up with me because I was 85% done, I added like 20 more pages, 20 more pages. So then that put us a little more behind. So it was a year late, and I'm going to make sure that doesn't happen again. But it's an oversized hardcover, you know, and we made it the best we possibly could.
It's a very, very pretty book. Like, I'm not just saying the art is great, but the book itself is well done, well designed, published well. Nice paper,
yeah, absolutely.
Nice stock on the cover.
So
Nice.
this first book, you used Zoop as a platform, right?
I did.
So what's the plan for book number 2? Are you still using that platform, or you have different plans, or is that all included in the stuff that you were talking about that's kind of secret at the moment?
Well, I guess every book that comes, if I was to launch another book, and we have some really big books, I'll tell you guys once we get off air, coming, and it's like every creator gets to choose their own platform, right? Zoop worked for me, and I like those guys. And the cool thing about Zoop is it's a handful of people, and they will call me, and I can call them and be like, hey, change this. Hey, let's do this. And they handle all the stuff we don't want to do to free us up as creatives, right? So I'm not having to deal with the printer. I'm not having to deal with the toy guy. I'm not having to deal with you get a team behind you, but that comes at a cost. They're taking, at least for me, 25% of net. And I'm pretty sure that's their standard deal. So you're losing on 200,000, 25%. That's a chunk, I mean, that's a good chunk of money. So there's also the point where you need to learn to do it ourselves too. But this was my first go around. I love the Zoop guys, and I would recommend them for anyone who's getting their toe in. The name's Eric Moss and Jordan Plosky, and they run it, and they're fantastic. If you're a new creator and you want the help, they're there for you. But I also know that Kickstarter's got a way bigger platform. There's the main guy there is Mike Minola's publicist, David Hyde, and if you can actually get a hold of him and pay him his fees, and Mateo, you should look into him if you're going to use Kickstarter. He does super fan promotion. He's fantastic, and we couldn't use him on Zoop because he kind of does everything through Kickstarter. But that guy is a guy to know in the crowdfunding space. And
that's awesome. Good to know, man. Thanks.
I'll definitely hook you up with him if you're interested in using the Kickstarter platform or just need a publicist at all. He's a great guy. So like I'm getting to know more. I'm learning more about printers, learning more about third-party distributors. That knowledge is got some power to it. I plan on to continue using Zoop for my books. I know that's not the way for everybody. People don't want to sacrifice that 25%, but that's just the way it goes. And I was upfront to Zoop about that. They wanted like some exclusive agreement with John, and I was like, no, I'm not going to tie it up on your platform. Just honest with them, And then with our toy, my toy guy's got 10,000 unique buyers on Kickstarter. He's been building it for 10 years. So even though the action figure is part of the John property, that's coming to Kickstarter, and we're going to use David Hyde to promote it. And I have access to his 10,000 buyers. And a thing you guys should look out for too, if you get connected with any third-party distributors, is share your buyers. Like if someone else is going to run your campaign, make sure that their backer list, I know Kickstarter kind of blocks your backer list, but you always got to stay on Kickstarter. But anybody who's selling your work for you, you should ask in the contract, well, if these are my customers, they're not your customers, because they're collecting that customer data. You need that information too. And trust me, if you got a great product, nobody will tell you no. Like be willing to pull out your red mark when you see these contracts. You cut out, there's some language that you definitely need to cut out. Anything but you want the freedom. I'm not doing this and betting on myself to be tied down to somebody else again, and you need the autonomy. And you guys were talking to Todd about this, and it's like, as these slow moving entities got these restrictions and their mandates from above and pressure from fans, we can jump and do whatever we want. And you want that freedom, and you never know which company is going to be around. Zoom might be the biggest in 10 years. They could sell and be gone in 5. Yeah, I don't know. So if you get those, if you have an idea for your business, those customers are key. Those are your customers. Your property is your property. You want the autonomy for it. You got to look out for that and look out for yourself. And if they're not willing to play ball, then there's other options. You can figure it out.
Let me. We're getting near the end here, but I want to ask you. If each panel is its own 11 by 17 page, you're sitting on a mountain of artwork. Have you sold any of it, or are you holding on to it?
Yeah, Felix is amazing. He sold it all.
Oh wow!
Okay. Not all of it. 85. It sold instantly, but it was like 85 of the pages that were done when I said I was 85% done. And we made
sorry
like
to interrupt, Nick, but when you
$112,000.
say the pages, you're talking about for example, page 15. Are you talking about the 3 11 by 17 big panels?
Yeah, so that means the page is almost 3 foot tall and 17 inches wide.
My God.
Jesus Christ.
But I like that because instead of doing a page a day, I only needed to do a panel a day. And then I could work on the negative space and not cram a bunch of stuff. And on the only pages that are normal size, like half of them are the double page spreads, because I tried to do 6 and it was just bigger than my draft.
Come on. You need a room just for that and start working like kids, where kids they play just on the ground, and that's you drawing like on the floor.
Oh my God. That reminds me, I loved your little intro of you like at your table, like in the little story about being a kid. Like I thought that welcomed me in too. That was really nice.
Yeah, that was like a part of the cold open, and this is all in the writing books, right? Like it's got to be interesting. And in that world, I mean, that character is going to be a real character in book 2. She's the frame narrator, and she's an unreliable narrator, but it is kind of me, right? But it is like that. But like if you're going to do a cold open of just somebody drawing, then it better put them in a room with weapons and make, there's a story reason for that too. But a visual hook, that's a old storytelling techniques to like hook people in. So, and then that's everything that's set up in book 1. This is another thing too, is a lot of times you work with these writers and they have ideas, but the stories don't complete. Jeff Lemire, you guys bring up, he's one of my absolute favorite writers. I feel like he knows where he's going, I feel like some of these guys are ideas and then tinker out, and I wasn't going to start John until I knew the last page of volume 7, and I knew every story beat like a tent pole in each volume. And you can meander a little bit with action or something, but you need to know where you're going. You need to know the page turn setups. We read comics. Look at your life and if you're scared to write, when you watch a movie and you're critical, something pops out in your head and you're like, that's wrong. I would have done that different. A big one for me is Shape of Water. I loved Shape of Water by Del Toro, but they have that fish scene, right? And everyone's like, she sleeps with a fish man, right? If you notice in that movie, when she's alone before she has a partner, she's setting like an egg timer and she gets off by playing with herself in the bathtub. She's kind of got her own thing sexually. The fish man, you don't even know if they got genitalia, right? What's going on there? Don't know. But they show the lovemaking scene. Del Toro also establishes that if you touch the the Loch Ness monster, whatever he is, skin, he turns blue. So for me, I really thought he was going to pull the shower curtain because the love making scenes in the bathtub. And then you should just have that translucent shower curtain turn blue. And then the reader gets to participate in, are they touching? Are they fucking? Are they, because you don't need, you can let the reader participate, right? So anyway, I'm terrible to watch movies with because I pause them and do that. If you look at your life when you're critical about story as you're training as a writer, now you have been writing. You've just been doing, think about it from the dark side of the negative side. When you see something in a comic that didn't quite stick with you, analyze why that was wrong and don't do it in your work. And then also reflect back on your life. For me, it was the men in my life that had these great tales, the young guy that's too bombastic, the old man that knows the way it is, but nobody wants to hear it. And those things that your dad or your grandpa, your uncle, some mentor told you, those are little dings. There's truths. And I think we only remember the truth or the antithesis of it. And I think everything else is gray. And if those moral tales stick out to you, they will, all you got to do is put the mask of a barbarian with no face or a gangster with some guns and put those same tales in there. Use your life as your writing resource. And that's what I did. And maybe that means I only got one story in me, but I'm going to tell that to the very end, you know, and that's my goal.
It's awesome, man.
Awesome. Well, I think that's a great place to close it up here. Unless you guys, did anyone have another question for Nick?
I was thinking about this thing that you just said about the story. Like sometimes I saw that what happens, especially with long runs, is that for some in some cases with some writers, I feel that sometimes they have the idea in the first place, but it's an idea that's, you know, it's something that's going to be happening in like 3 years from now, because, you know, drawing takes way longer than just, you know, writing the story. And by that time, they're kind of bored of their idea, because in their head, the idea was there the whole time. You know, for you as an artist, you're still waiting for it. So, you know, it's still there. But sometimes they kind of get bored, and in those 3 years, they change their mind about the story and they start rebuilding the whole thing. So I think that's, at least that was my experience, for example, in Black Science, the book that I did with Rick. We started with some ideas, and but again, some things had to happen too late, and you know, by that time, Rick was bored of those ideas, so he decided to change them. So it's sometimes it happens. Yeah, absolutely.
I had the same experience.
You just summoned Rick Remender. He just woke up from a deep nap.
Some asshole is talking about me.
Him. He just
no. It was, I didn't want to talk shit, but it reminded me of this thing.
Yeah, his arms is across his chest, and he's like rose up from his grave like Nosferatu. He's on his way. You're fucked. Sorry, Nick, I cut you off.
No, you're good. We had the same experience with Manhattan Projects. 1 through 20, we got together and said, this is when Einstein the Barbarian's coming back. He's going to kill Oppenheimer the second he turns good. And then after 20, I really only recommend the first 4 volumes of Manhattan Projects, because I feel like by then, and these writers, they got their Marvel gigs. They got 4 other projects. You know, it happens. And I want to be able to dictate where my story goes, you know, and I love Hickman, and I'm sure you love Rick, but you know, it's all, they get it. It's part of the mechanism.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
I forgot one thing, since I'm a fan of the show, and if we're going to leave, we should leave on this note. Read On Writing by Stephen King, just to get in the mindset of what a writer is. Save the Cat is really basic, and you cannot leave without Adolf Hitler's Mein Kampf. That's the last one.
That's a good one.
Eric's already got Eric's in the palette of Mein Kampf right now.
Yeah, Eric. I'm pretty sure that Eric has one of those for sure. The other 2, I don't know, but one of them, I'm pretty sure.
Actually, I love Eric's the show. He's like into Stoicism, and I love Stoicism. He's always the level-headed. He's exact, you know. Eric's put together, and I love the juxtaposition of you 3 is a great dynamic. And I think you guys got a great thing going. And what I was telling Shawn is I can see down the line an ink pulp imprint somewhere, you know, and as us creatives look up from the page for the first time and start navigating this industry, we've got these creative minds that are looking out now. And I think that's dangerous for all the other publishers. You know, we're creative, we're passionate, we're dumb enough to do something that's impossible in being comic book artists. What do we do when we start looking at the business side, you know?
Absolutely, man. Well said,
thanks
man.
for coming on, Nick.
Thanks a lot, man. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
And thank you all for listening. Mateo, you want to sign us out of here quickly?
Bye-bye.
Nope.
Do it.
The Ink Pulp Podcast.
Hey, guys. My new sketchbook, Dumb Shark, is finally out.
That's great, Fratello. Congrats. Eric, what do you think?
Wow, Mateo. This book has really changed how I think about art. The style, the details, the inking techniques, not to mention the colors. Everything on this book is off the chart. You are so far ahead of any other artist, especially me. I know I always say I don't like your Mr. Freeze book, but that's actually a lie. I was just jealous of your incredible talent because I love everything you do, and sadly, I know deep in my heart that I'll never be at your extraordinary level. You truly are the best artist on planet Earth. This book is a game changer, man. I think everyone out there should go and order Mateo's new art book, Dumb Shark, before it sells out.
Gee willikers, Eric. That was an incredible endorsement. You really made me want to buy it. How can I get my hands on it?
You can find it on www.essentialsequential.com, or if you're in Europe, you can order it on www.pulps.fr.
Wow, Eric. I didn't know you were such a big fan of mine. Thank you. I really don't need to add anything else. You said it all.
What an asshole.
Wait, what?